Well folks, it seems the United States Postal Service finally got the message. Louis DeJoy's gotta go. After a tumultuous 5 years at the helm, the Postmaster General has decided to call it quits. His tenure has been nothing short of controversial, marked by sweeping changes that left many scratching their heads. That's right, the man who ran the USPS like a misbehaving intern trying to impress his boss with radical cost-cutting measures is finally moving on. From slashing overtime to removing mail sorting machines, his strategies were often seen as disruptive rather than constructive. Don't get too excited though, the search for his replacement is on, and let's just say the bar is about as low as a limbo contest in a hobbit village. The new Postmaster General will have to navigate a minefield of issues, from restoring public trust to modernizing an aging infrastructure. DeJoy's tenure was, to put it mildly, eventful. Imagine a bull in a china shop. His aggressive cost-cutting measures were intended to make the USPS more efficient, but often resulted in chaos and confusion. Now imagine that Bull is wearing a Make America Great Again hat and trying to balance the federal budget on its horns. His political affiliations and actions made him a polarizing figure, drawing both staunch supporters and fierce critics. That's basically DeJoy's time at the USPS in a nutshell. A whirlwind of controversy, cost-cutting, and constant media attention. His resignation comes after years of criticism over his handling of the agency, particularly during the pandemic when mail-in voting became a political hot potato. The delays and operational changes during this period were seen as attempts to undermine the election process. And of course, who could forget the infamous mail delays? Packages and letters that once took days to arrive suddenly took weeks, causing frustration nationwide. Remember when it took longer to get a birthday card than it did for your grandma to knit you a sweater vest? Good times? The delays became a running joke, but for many, it was no laughing matter. But hey, let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is the USPS we're talking about, an institution that's about as good at change as a toddler is at sitting still. The road ahead is uncertain, and the challenges are immense. So buckle up, folks, because the saga of the USPS is far from over. With DeJoy's departure, a new chapter begins, and only time will tell if it will be a story of redemption or more of the same. Now, to be fair to DeJoy, he did inherit a bit of a mess. The USPS was already facing a myriad of challenges, from financial woes to adapting to the digital age. The USPS was already facing financial difficulties and struggling to adapt to the digital age. The rise of email and digital communication had significantly reduced the volume of traditional mail, which was a major revenue source. And then bam! The pandemic hit, and suddenly everyone and their goldfish was ordering everything online. The surge in e-commerce was unprecedented, with people relying on online shopping for everything from groceries to gadgets. It was like Christmas, every day for Amazon, but for the USPS, it was more like a never-ending Black Friday rush. The sheer volume of packages was overwhelming, and the infrastructure was not prepared for such a massive influx. The surge in online shopping, coupled with the closure of businesses and social distancing measures, put an immense strain on the already stretched thin postal service. Mail carriers had to adapt quickly to new safety protocols while managing an ever-increasing workload. Mail carriers, bless their cotton socks, were working overtime, risking their health to deliver essential goods, and of course, those adorable cat videos we all crave. Their dedication was commendable, but the pressure was relentless. It was a perfect storm of challenges, and frankly, even the most experienced Postmaster General would have struggled to keep the ship afloat. The combination of financial strain, increased demand, and health risks created a nearly impossible situation. But let's just say DeJoy's approach was less steady hand at the helm and more let's see if this thing can fly as he tossed out the rulebook and hoped for the best. His decisions were controversial and often met with criticism. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. The system buckled under the pressure, leading to delays, missed deliveries, and frustrated customers nationwide. See, DeJoy, a former logistics executive and major Republican donor, came in with a mandate to modernize the USPS and stem its financial bleeding. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, his idea of modernization was about as subtle as a sledgehammer in a soufflé shop. He implemented a series of cost-cutting measures that would make even the most frugal accountant wince. We're talking about removing mail sorting machines, cutting overtime pay, and reducing delivery trips. It was like he was playing a real-life game of Jenga with the entire postal system, and surprise, surprise, the whole thing started to wobble precariously. Now, to be fair, some argued that these changes were long overdue. The USPS had been losing money for years, and something had to be done. But critics argued that DeJoy's slash-and-burn approach was not the answer, that it was akin to treating a flesh wound with a chainsaw. Not exactly the most delicate approach. And then came the delays. Oh, the delays. Remember those birthday cards taking longer than a transatlantic voyage? Yeah, that was just the tip of the iceberg. People were waiting weeks, sometimes months, for important documents, medications, and yes, even those life-sustaining cat videos. Businesses, especially small businesses already struggling to stay afloat during the pandemic, were hit hard. Consumers were frustrated, and the USPS became the punching bag of late-night talk show hosts and exasperated citizens alike. It was not a good look. Of course, DeJoy defended his actions, arguing that the delays were temporary and necessary to improve efficiency in the long run. But for many Americans, the damage was done. Trust in the USPS, an institution once considered a bedrock of American life, had been shaken. Section 5. A House divided, Congressional scrutiny, and public outcry. As you might imagine, all of this did not go unnoticed by Congress. The actions and decisions of the USPS leadership quickly became a hot topic on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers, already wary of DeJoy's close ties to the Trump administration, launched investigations, held hearings, and generally gave the Postmaster General a very public grilling. The scrutiny was intense, with every decision and action being put under the microscope. Democrats accused DeJoy of deliberately sabotaging the USPS ahead of the 2020 election, when mail-in voting was expected to be crucial. They argued that the changes he implemented were designed to slow down mail delivery and undermine the election process. Republicans, meanwhile, defended DeJoy, arguing that he was simply trying to reform a broken system. They claimed that the USPS had been in financial trouble for years, and that DeJoy's measures were necessary to ensure its long-term viability. It was a political football, and the USPS was stuck in the middle of the field, getting kicked around by both sides. The debate was fierce, with both parties using the issue to rally their bases and score political points. Meanwhile, the public was not exactly standing idly by. Across the country, people were mobilizing to show their support for the USPS and to demand action from their elected officials. People took to the streets, organized letter-writing campaigns, and generally made their displeasure known. The grassroots movement was powerful, with citizens from all walks of life coming together to defend an institution they saw as vital to their communities. It was a classic case of people power in action, and it showed that even in the digital age, the USPS still holds a special place in the hearts of many Americans. The public outcry was a testament to the enduring importance of the Postal Service in American life. Section 6. The Politics of Postal Service, DeJoy's background and its implications. Now, you can't talk about DeJoy's tenure without mentioning the elephant, or perhaps the donkey, in the room: politics. See, before becoming Postmaster General, DeJoy was a major Republican donor with close ties to then-President Donald Trump. He had no prior experience in the Postal Service, which, let's be honest, is a bit like putting a giraffe in charge of a submarine. Not exactly a natural fit. Some saw his appointment as a blatant attempt by the Trump administration to undermine the USPS, particularly ahead of an election where mail-in voting was expected to play a significant role. Others argued that DeJoy was simply a businessman brought in to shake things up. Whatever the case, his appointment injected a heavy dose of politics into an institution that, ideally, should be above the fray. Section 7. Delivering the Future, the Search for DeJoy's Successor. So, with DeJoy's departure, the question now becomes, who will fill his shoes? The Postal Service Board of Governors, a group appointed by the President, will be responsible for choosing the next Postmaster General. And let's just say all eyes will be on them to see if they can find someone who can actually deliver, pun intended, on the USPS's mission. The next Postmaster General will inherit a daunting task. They'll need to address the agency's financial woes, modernize its operations for the 21st century, and restore public trust. And they'll need to do all of this while navigating the treacherous waters of Washington politics. It's a tall order, but hey, nobody ever said delivering the future was going to be easy. Section 8. Lessons learned. Reflecting on DeJoy's tenure. DeJoy's time at the USPS will undoubtedly be studied and debated for years to come. It was a period of unprecedented challenges and controversial decisions. But if there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that the USPS is an essential service that deserves our support. DeJoy's tenure, for all its flaws, served as a wake-up call. It reminded us that even in the digital age, the Postal Service plays a vital role in our lives, from delivering essential goods to connecting us with loved ones. It also highlighted the need for thoughtful, measured reform, not just slash-and-burn cost-cutting. Section 9, Moving Forward, the challenges and opportunities facing USPS. So what does the future hold for the USPS? That's the million-dollar question, or perhaps the billion-dollar question, given the agency's financial situation. The challenges are many. The rise of e-commerce continues to put a strain on its resources. The agency's aging infrastructure is in dire need of an upgrade, and of course there's always the threat of further political meddling. But there are also opportunities. The USPS has a vast network that reaches every corner of the country. It enjoys a high level of public trust, or at least it did before DeJoy got his hands on it. And it's well positioned to play a key role in emerging industries like e-commerce fulfillment and last-mile delivery. The future of the USPS is uncertain, but one thing is clear: it's an institution worth fighting for.